Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. It's your boy, Tony Massey, and tonight I have something very special for you. I was going to record it, but this is a pretty quick meal, so I'm going to go ahead and do it live. I hope you can appreciate that. I got Facebook and YouTube right here in front of me, and then, of course, I got Instagram in the building. What's up, IG? So, again, this is going to be great. Tonight, I'm going to take these beautiful whole red snapper. I had my fishmonger go ahead and clean them. And remove all of the fins, and also had him, he kind of opened them up for me so that I can stuff them, which is what I'm going to do tonight. So I'm going to pan roast these in the oven. I'm going to oven roast these in the oven, and then I'm going to top it with a creamy shrimp, Cajun creamy shrimp and crawfish bechamel sauce. So this is going to be really cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get my fish ready. So for the ingredients, before we get started, I have, of course, my 2 red snapper. I got about a half a pound of white shrimp that I've deveined and cleaned. I have about a pound of crawfish, and this is Louisiana crawfish. I found it in Atlanta. I'm so excited about that. And then, of course, any dish that has the word Cajun or Creole in it is going to start with the Trinity. The Trinity, of course, is onions. I got some celery, and then, of course, bell pepper. And I have red and green bell pepper that I've chopped up here. I have some whole garlic. I have some scallions or green onions here that I'm going to chop up here in a second. 3 onions, spinach, butter, and then for my seasoning, for my herbs, of course, I have some parsley, and then I have some rosemary, fresh thyme, and some tarragon. So I'm going to be using that to dress the fish. For my dry seasonings, I have white black pepper, I have garlic powder, I have lemon pepper, I have paprika, I have cayenne, and then I have Italian seasoning. What you will notice I don't have here is Cajun seasoning, because I like to make my own, because then you can control the salt content. And then, of course, for the bechamel sauce, I have some whole milk, some flour, and butter, because, of course, that bechamel is going to start with a roux. And I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do that. So first things first, let's go. And remember, I told you all the time, whenever you cook, always cook in the order in which things are going to be done. Now, what you hear over there that I'm not showing you is the Instant Pot has rice in it. So I didn't think you needed to learn how to cook rice. So I omitted that part from, from the live. So let's start with the fish. Now, again, I have my 2 whole snapper here. Now, this is a really fleshy fish. So, and it's kind of thick. So I'm going to start by scoring the snapper, and I'm just going to cut 3 slits, 3 nice side slits all the way to the bone in the skin of the snapper on both sides. This is going to make sure that my seasoning gets to the meat of my snapper. And yes, I'm going to leave the head on. No reason for me to take it off. I'm going to serve it restaurant style. So I'm just going to leave that little head right there on there. My other one here, again, scoring right down to the skin, to the bone, through the skin to the bone. And again, that's just to make sure all of my seasonings get into where I want them to be in the snapper. Now, let's start seasoning our snapper, okay? First, let me wash my hands. And I'm going to make a kind of a wet rub with my herbs. I'm going to start with my rosemary, and I'm just going to take the rosemary and peel off the little leaves off the rosemary plant here and leave the stem behind. I'm going to do 2 of those. I like to start with fresh herbs for the fish. You do want to use you can use dry ingredients as well, especially if you're broiling or blackening your fish. Otherwise, your seasonings are going to burn. And then I'm going to take some fresh thyme, and the same thing. I'm peeling off these little thyme leaves right into my little blender here, or my food processor here. And again, I'll probably use a little more thyme. I like the flavor of thyme. That goes right in. And I'm just using the little, and if you get a little stem in there, that's okay. That you don't want the whole thing in there, but it's okay if you have a couple in there. And then I'm going to take just a couple of heads of parsley, throw those in there. Just like so. And then my tarragon, that's going to go in there as well. And I'm just going to take the leaves off the tarragon. Same thing. And what I'm making here, I'm going to eventually make this is going to be like a marinade. So it's going to marinate the fish, and I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do that. Tarragon goes in. And then I have some whole cloves of garlic. I'm going to take probably about 3 or 4 of these little cloves in there. 2, 3, 4. Save some for my spinach. And then, should have had this out already, but I have some avocado oil. Now, I'm using avocado oil because it has a high heat, a high smoke point, which means that it can get really hot and not start smoking. This fish is going to go into a 450-degree oven that I've already preheated, so you don't want anything with a low smoke point that's going to start burning. I'm probably about a tablespoon of oil in there, and then I'm also going to put some salt. And then I'm going to add some lemon pepper. That goes in. And now I'm going to blend this into, I'm going to emulsify it into, and it's like a something I can spread on a marinade onto the fish. So that's going to go right now. And if it's too dry, then I'll just add a little more olive oil to it, because again, I'm painting this onto the fish. I said avocado oil, I said olive oil, I'm using avocado oil. Right. Just a little finer. Perfect. Now I'll grab my brush. My brush. Gotta love live. Okay, no brush, no worries. Just take a spatula and paint it on. And I'm just gonna paint this onto the fish. And I wanna make sure I get into those slits. That was the whole point of making them. I wanna make sure that seasoning gets into those slits as well. Of course, I'm going to do both sides, and you want to be really liberal with this. And I'm going to concentrate on the parts of the fish that I plan to eat. So I'm not going to put any on the head or anything like that, just the parts that I plan on eating. And again, I want to make sure I get some into those slits so that flavor gets down into the flesh of my fish. Perfect. Grab my pan over here. I have a shallow baking pan here that I'm going to use to cook the fish in. Spatula here. Take my fish and put it into the pan, and then inside the fish, I'm going to take a couple of these, some thyme and some rosemary, and I'm just going to put it inside of the fish. You know what? I'm actually going to put a couple of pieces of garlic in there as well. Perfect. Go ahead and get my other piece dressed and ready to go. And I want to get all that seasoning all over my fish, into those little slits that I made. Over. Use every single drop. Don't want to miss a bit of flavor. And then inside this fish as well, some rosemary, some thyme, and then some garlic. Go ahead and take that one and put it into my pan as well, right next to the other. And this is what I got so far. So this is going to go into a 450-degree oven, and I'm going to roast this in the oven for 20 minutes. All right. So this is going to go in right now. And start. So I got 20 minutes. So let me clean up a little bit, and I'm going to start my roux for the bechamel sauce. So this dish was actually inspired a little bit by my love for, of course, seafood and Creole food, but Papados. Papados has a beautiful red snapper and pontchartrain sauce that I absolutely love. And so that kind of inspired this dish. But I wasn't feeling the pontchartrain right now, so I decided to go ahead and do a bechamel sauce. So let's get into that right now, okay? Now, before we start, there are some people who do, when they do their roux, they start with their roux and then they saute their vegetables. I don't necessarily like doing that, and the only reason I don't like doing that is because I feel like when I saute my vegetables in the roux, I don't feel like my vegetables get as cooked as I want them to be. I don't want them to be crunchy inside of my sauce. So I like to saute and soften my vegetables first, set them to the side, and then make my roux. You can do it either way. I don't think there's a definitive rule or anything like that. So I'm going to start by sauteing my vegetables. A little avocado oil goes into the pan. And I'm going to start with the onions. Now, I'm not trying to caramelize these onions. I just want to soften them. I just want to cook them, okay? I thought I had everything out before I started this live, but I guess I didn't. Here we go. All right. So get those onions moving around. And again, I'm just going to cook them until they are translucent. That's going to be the key for me to stop cooking. Love that sound. That's the sound of flavor. Now, when it comes to red snapper, I like using snapper because it's, like I said, it's a really fleshy fish. It's also not a very fishy fish, if that makes sense. It takes on the flavors of whatever you add to it. And so you get that fish, you don't get that overwhelming fish flavor is what I try to avoid. All right, my onions are moving there pretty quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and add my celery. And then I'm also going to add the bell pepper. And again, I've cut up about a half of a red bell pepper and a half of a green bell pepper. And this is called the Trinity. Any dish, almost any savory dish that comes out of Louisiana, Creole or Cajun, is going to start with the Trinity. And what I love about the Trinity is even before you add anything to it, even before you season it, this already smells good. This already smells amazing. And again, I just want these veggies nice and soft. I'm not trying to caramelize the onions or anything like that. I'm not trying to cook them all the way through. The sauce is going to do that for me. Perfect. Smelling really good. Smelling really, really good. So a bechamel sauce is one of the 5 mother sauces that every cook needs to learn how to make. These are the base sauces for any dish. So if I was making a etouffee or a gumbo, my roux is going to look really different than the one that you're going to see me make tonight. And it's because this is a white sauce. And the beauty of a bechamel sauce is that it's so versatile. You can use it by itself and pour it over some pasta or whatever the case may be. You can use it in lasagna as a layer for a lasagna dish. It's a very versatile sauce. You can add cheese to it and make a nice cheese sauce. Almost anything. It's a beautiful sauce. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the live. I was trying to decide if I was going to do this live or record this, but I decided, you know what? I got to get better at cooking on the fly. So I decided to go ahead and go live. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. All right. My veggies are pretty much where I want them to be. So I'm going to grab a bowl. And I'm going to transfer them to a bowl, and I'm going to start my roux. So for my roux, I want to make sure I'm not going to clean this pan because I could use some of the oil that's already in here. That's fine. And if there's a few wayward vegetables, that's okay because it's all going back in here anyway. I like to start with veggies that have hit the pan, that have been sauteed in the pan before I start the roux. So first thing I'm going to do is turn my heat down because this is a very, you don't want to rush your roux. So I'm turning it down to a medium low heat, okay? Now the key to a roux, it's really simple. All you have to do is do equal parts butter or oil and flour. So I have 3 tablespoons of flour, which means I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to start by melting the butter. And that pan is a lot hotter than I want it to be. Butter shouldn't have done that. I'm going to cool the pan off a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to move this butter around until the edges start to become brown. And again, if I was making if I was doing a gumbo or an etouffee, then I would brown this butter. I would keep on doing this until the butter actually turned brown. But because again, this is a white sauce, I'm not going to do that. So now all my butter is nice and melted. The edges are starting to brown a little bit. So I'm going to slowly add in my flour and just keep moving it around. I'm also going to transition from my wooden spoon here to a whisk. So I'm still adding my flour, moving that around. A little more flour. And I don't want that flour to burn, which is why I keep moving it around. A little more flour. And basically what I'm trying to do is cook the flour out. I want the butter to cook out the flour. Just kind of keep moving it around. It's going to start clumping up, and that's fine. You're going to have almost looks like cookie dough, right? Now, at this point, for the bechamel, I'm going to turn off the heat. I'm taking the flour mixture off the heat because I'm going to add cold milk cold whole milk to this. And I don't want the milk to burn, okay? So A lot of people will heat the milk up. I find if you put cold milk or cream into the roux or into the flour mixture, you get a more creamy consistency. So that goes in, and I'm just going to start moving it around. There we go. It's already starting to smooth out a little bit, so I'm going to add a little more cream. So I'm starting to get like a paste, which is exactly what I want. A little more cream. I'm probably going to add almost, how much is this? A pint. I'll probably add this whole pint of cream in here. I'm just moving it around. It's starting to smooth out really nicely. And the reason I'm using my whisk is because I really want to break up those clumps. I don't want any of those clumps in there. And look at that. Oh, look at that. See how smooth that is? That's what I want. That's a beautiful bechamel. Keep moving that sauce around. Still adding more cream. Beautiful. And again, what I love about a bechamel is it's the versatility. So what I can do is add cheese to this. This is a great way for mac and cheese, starting with a roux, starting with a bechamel. Make this roux and then start adding your cheese to it and pour that over your noodles. So much better than Velveeta. You'll get that creamy, cheesy texture that you want without having to add pasteurized cheese. You can just cook with regular, good old-fashioned cheese. A little bit more cream. Look at that. Look how pretty that is. That is a perfect bechamel sauce. And I add the rest of my cream in there, and it's perfect. And that's exactly what I want. Now, I'm going to turn the heat back on to about medium high. And I have to watch it because, again, that's still milk in there. I don't want the milk to burn. But now I'm going to start adding my other ingredients. As it heats up. All right. In goes my veggies back into the mix there. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the spoon. Beautiful. Now I want to start seasoning. I got about a teaspoon of, I have a teaspoon and a half of garlic powder. That's going to go in. And then I have 2 tablespoons of paprika. That's going to go in, and that's going to change the color a little bit, but that's okay. Again, I want to just keep moving that thing around. I don't want that milk to burn at the bottom of the pan. And then I have a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. And then I have a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. That goes in. And that sauce is looking incredible. Now it's starting to thicken up on me. So I'm going to show you a secret on how to deal with that. And that is dry white wine. Just going to add a little, and it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to pick up some of the stuff at the bottom of the pan, and it's going to thin my sauce out a little bit. Now I'm just going to make sure I cook it all the way through. Again, it smells absolutely incredible. Turn my fire down a little bit. Okay. Now into the pan goes my shrimp. And the shrimp are going to just get cooked by the sauce. Just a little bit more wine. It's not going to take long for that shrimp to cook. So I'm going to let this simmer. Turn it down a little bit. And let the shrimp cook in the sauce. Now my crawfish are already cooked, so they're going to go in last. The last thing I'm going to add to this sauce is I'm going to squeeze some fresh lemon in there. Some fresh lemon juice goes in. And we have about 5 more minutes left on the fish. So everything should finish around the same time, which I like that. So I'm going to start my spinach, which means I'm going to transfer the sauce to my stove here and just let that simmer over here on the stove, waiting for the shrimp to cook all the way through. One thing I am gonna, let me taste it first. Oh, yeah, so good. It does need some salt. That's the other thing about a bechamel. Instead of a bechamel is a really basic flavor, right? And if you ever wondered how much salt to put into something, because sometimes the recipes will say add this much salt, that much salt, and salt is very subjective. You know, it really is down to your flavor profiles, right? But a bechamel sauce is like a blank canvas, and so as you add salt to it, it changes the flavor of it pretty dramatically. Grab another spoon and see what that did to it. Perfection. Perfection. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this to the stove because I'm going to start sauteing my spinach. Wash my hands. Okay, got my pan here. Into my pan, I'm gonna go ahead and put some olive oil, or actually no, yeah, some avocado oil, sorry about that, and let that heat up. And then over here, this is totally optional, you don't have to do this, but this is smoked pork belly. I got this from one of the farmers markets here. So I'm gonna chop this up, the smoked pork belly up into little pieces. And that's just gonna add another layer of flavor for my, and it's already cooked, because again, it's smoked, for my spinach. So that's gonna go right into the pan. I got about 2 more pieces of garlic left. So I'm gonna take my garlic press. Oops. And add that to that pork. in there. Right, just gonna start moving that around. I'm gonna check on that sauce. Yeah, that's nice. My fish are saying, I'm done, I'm done. And they look amazing. All right. So now I'm going to add my spinach to the pan in batches. Start sauteing it. The other good thing about that pork belly is that it's going to make oil too. Hot in the kitchen, wash my hands. Time you touch your face in the kitchen, you gotta wash your hands. So I came home with all of these groceries, and my wife had just finished cleaning the kitchen. And the look on her face was like, oh, you're not cooking tonight, are you? And I understand. I'm not, as you can see, I'm not a clean as you go chef. But I am going to clean the kitchen when I finish cooking so that she doesn't have to. All right, I'm going to turn the oven off because I think my fish is done. And I'm just going to let the oven keep it nice and warm. You don't want to overcook your fish. It will definitely be rubbery, and that's no good. All right, start adding more spinach. My pan is getting a little dry, so I'm going to add a little more avocado oil. Saute the spinach in. All right, to my spinach, I'm just gonna keep it real simple with the spinach. I got a lot of complex flavors going on. I don't need to overdo it, so I'm just gonna be as simple as a little pinch of salt and then some fresh ground cracked pepper. Perfect. All right, I'm going to switch skillets here. The spinach is nice and done. So I'm going to put the spinach back on the stove, and I'm going to grab my sauce. Because my shrimp is nice and cooked. Yes. Oh. And so now, the final ingredient, I'm going to add my crawfish. And again, the crawfish are already cooked, so I don't have to worry about cooking them. I'm just really basically heating them up. So when I first got here, I wanted to make a crawfish etouffee. So I went looking for crawfish, and all I could find was the crawfish from China. And that's like a cardinal sin, using Chinese crawfish in a Cajun or Creole dish. So I made shrimp etouffee instead. And then in my travels, I came across a grocery store in, I don't know where. I don't want to lie. It's one of the farmers markets. And they actually had the Louisiana crawfish. I was so excited because I found like now I can actually make crawfish dishes and not have to get kicked out of, the club, I guess. All right, this sauce is done. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side. It's ready to go. Turn off the stove, turn off the oven, move my burner over, because I do need to cut up some of these green onions. All right, so I'm going to cut some of these green onions or scallions up. And I'm using these as garnish. Just gonna cut it up a little finer. I'm also going to cut up a little parsley for garnish. All right, let me grab that fish out of the oven and we're going to start plating. We're ready to plate. Oh, yes. Look at that. Can you see that? Absolutely beautiful, beautifully cooked. Perfect. Right. Grab some plates here. You're gonna have to be real careful with this fish now that it's cooked. It might fall apart on us. Oops. Right, so I'm just taking the kind of a top half of the fish. Now you got to be careful with snapper. It does have bones, so you definitely want to eat it carefully. Now I'm going to add some of that spinach. Sauteed spinach there. And then, of course, I have to add that incredible Cajun Bechamel sauce. Put that right on my fish. Make sure I get some shrimp and crawfish in every spoonful. Perfect. Then, of course, can't forget about my rice. Nice scoop of rice here. Top this off with some scallions. And a little parsley. Let me do a little sauce on my rice as well. And there we have it. A beautiful red snapper, oven roasted with a Cajun, I'm so bad with the names, with a shrimp and crawfish Cajun bechamel sauce and some sauteed spinach on the side there. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll take plenty of pictures of this and put it up on the website. If you are joining me tonight for the first time, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me at Tony Massey Cooks Live. Join me tomorrow night. Realshoptalk.net. Realshoptalk.net. 5 men, 5 grown men with no hidden agenda, talking shop. We talk about everything: manhood, fatherhood, brotherhood, all the hoods. And tomorrow night's episode is going to be really good. I'm wondering if the brothers we're going to finally have a point of dissension in the ranks, because tomorrow we're talking about alpha versus beta men. And we're going to ask the question, who's winning? Personally, I'll save my thoughts for tomorrow. So go to realshoptalk.net. All of the links are on there. Make sure you're following everyone, all of the 5 men on the realshoptalk.net. And then, of course, make sure you join me every Thursday night with Chef in the Spotlight here on Tony Massey Cooks Live. We've had some awesome chefs. So go to TonyMasseyCooks.com and check out some of the previous episodes. I know some of them are watching, so I would love to get your feedback on this dish. Let me know how I did. And again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.